often meet copywriters who produce beautiful copy while paying little to no attention to the feelings or behavior that the copy is supposed to trigger. However, in the right hands, the copy of your website is a powerful tool and can make the whole difference between the great success and mediocrity. Take a classic experiment by psychologist John Barr and his team at New York University. They asked two groups of students to come up with a set of 4-word sentences from 5 available words. The first group was allocated words associated with the idea of old. The words were Florida, forgetful, bold, gray, and wrinkle. The students left the classroom without realizing that the important part of the experiment was only just beginning. The team of psychologists measured the amount of time it took students to walk from the beginning to the end of the corridor. The crazy thing is that students who were exposed to the concept of old walked down the corridor significantly more slowly than the second group did. In yet another example provided by Paul Bloom in his book How Pleasure Works, a wine described as expensive, basically people were told that the bottle cost $90, was perceived to be better than when the same wine was presented as a $10 bottle. I love how psychologist Richard Wiseman concludes this paradox. Here's what he says. I quote, "The ways in which we think and feel are frequently influenced by factors outside our awareness. Just reading a sentence can influence how old we feel and our recall of general knowledge. A simple smile or subtle touch can influence how much we tip in restaurants and bars. The music played in shops influences the amount of money we spend." Another common mistake made by many content writers is using complex vocabulary that looks good on paper. However, studies by Oppenheimer found that, I quote, "Couching familiar ideas in pretentious language is taken as a sign of poor intelligence and low credibility. The moral of the story is that if you are a pawnbroker-like business, a pawnbroker that deals in luxury goods, or a forklift truck company, simple does it." This is also true for the fonts used for the copy, and every SEO audit must include a check of readability of your copy. For example, Oppenheimer also found that passages written in a font which was difficult to read impacted negatively the perceived intelligence of the author. The conclusion is that if your goal is to improve the perception of your website, easy to read copy really does make a difference. Readability, Grammarly, and Yoast SEO are just a few examples of tools that have inbuilt readability modules. With the risk of repeating myself, let me say that these ideas seem obvious, but in my experience, content writers and web designers are often producing stuff that shows off their skills or is cool, but they often make the website more complicated than it needs to be. It is your role as a marketer to rein them in. The name of your website and names of your products are another factor that can have a strong impact on the performance of your website or product. For example, in one experiment described by Daniel Kahneman, participants were asked to evaluate reports from two companies named Artan and Tahut. The participants gave more credit to the company they could think of more easily, in this case Artan, presumably because they unconsciously avoided the cognitive effort of thinking about a more complicated name. Another study found that companies with names that are more easily pronounceable, for example Emmy, Swiss First or Comet, did better than companies with more difficult names like Geberit, Ipson in the week after they went public. Think about it, the name of your client's company or of your company may contribute to a worse performance on the stock market. I experienced this firsthand when, as a training project, I was building my first website for translation agency I was looking to launch long time ago. After much deliberation, I decided to go with besttranslations.co.uk. At first glance, this seemed sensible. However, at a closer look, I noticed that the letter T was missing after best. Basically, instead of double T, I only had one T. Every time I was trying to type the website into Google, I had to make a conscious effort to stop and think about the name, adding further cognitive pressure on myself to the point that I simply started to type Best Translations into Google. Of course, being newly built, the website was nowhere close to being on the first page in Google, which meant that any of my clients who typed Best Translations into Google were being served competitors' websites. Let's conclude our discussion on copy with a review of the approach usually employed by content writers, SEO teams, or PPC consultants when writing copy. In a simplistic way, the process goes something like this. A keyword research is carried out. Groups of keywords are then allocated to specific pages based on keyword themes, and content is created in line with the theme. Of course, very little thought is being put into the final conversion optimization actions as found in the brilliant New York University experiment, where the words associated with being old affected the actions of the subjects. But now we know better, right? Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next session.